Welcome back to No Michael channel. Today is February 12th, 2026, and the AI world has been absolutely packed with drama, power moves, and some genuinely unsettling stories. From a high-profile resignation at OpenAI to Anthropic taking shots at its biggest rival to governments and militaries quietly ramping up AI surveillance and weapons, there is a lot to unpack. Let's get into today's AI News Roundup. First up, the biggest story of the day. A researcher at OpenAI has quit and is sounding the alarm. This news comes from Gizmodo Tech News, published on February 11th, 2026, and from Ars Technica's AI section, also on February 11th, 2026. Both outlets are reporting on the resignation of Solveig Hitzig, a researcher at OpenAI who left the company the same day OpenAI began testing ads inside ChatGPT. According to Gizmodo, Hitzig warns that OpenAI is sitting on what she calls an unprecedented archive of human candor, basically billions of conversations where people pour out their private thoughts, worries, plans, and secrets to ChatGPT. She argues that this dataset is incredibly sensitive and potentially dangerous, especially if it ever becomes entangled with targeted advertising or other forms of user manipulation. Ars Technica focuses more specifically on the ad angle. Their article, published February 11th, says Hitzig resigned over fears that putting ads into ChatGPT could send the company down a Facebook path, meaning a business model built on extracting attention and shaping behavior rather than purely serving users. The timing is key. OpenAI starts testing ads in ChatGPT's free tier, and a safety-focused researcher quits that same day, publicly warning that this kind of monetization could weaponize that archive of human candor. It raises the question, what happens when a system that knows your deepest concerns starts showing you sponsored content? And that brings us directly to our second big storyline, Anthropic versus OpenAI in the battle for the free tier. This news comes from Engadget Tech News, published on February 11th, 2026. Engadget reports that Anthropic is beefing up the free tier of its Claude chatbot, very clearly positioning itself as the ad-free alternative, just as OpenAI experiments with ads. Here's what's new for free Claude users. According to Engadget, you can now create and edit files directly in Claude: Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, Word documents, and PDFs. These file creation abilities are powered by Anthropic's Sonnet 4.5 model. You can connect Claude to third-party services through connectors, things like Canva, Slack, Notion, Zapier, PayPal, and more, so the AI can actually act across your tools. You can define skills, which are basically reusable task setups, folders of instructions, scripts, and resources that Claude loads when it needs to perform particular jobs. And they've upgraded the basics: longer conversations, more interactive responses, and better voice and image search. Engadget notes that Anthropic's announcement ends with the tagline, "No ads in sight," echoing a promise they made last week that Claude will remain ad-free. They even ran a Super Bowl ad poking fun at OpenAI's move toward monetization and at GPT-4o's tendency to be overly flattering. So on one side, you have OpenAI testing ads in a system that has intimate knowledge of users. On the other side, Anthropic is saying, we'll give you powerful tools for free, no ads, and we'll brand ourselves as the responsible alternative. That theme of responsibility, or lack of it, keeps popping up across today's news. Let's pivot from consumer chatbots to government, surveillance, and policing. This next story comes from Wired's Artificial Intelligence section, published February 11th, 2026. Wired reports that U.S. Customs and Border Protection has signed a deal with Clearview AI to use its facial recognition system for what CBP calls tactical targeting. Clearview AI is infamous for scraping billions of images from the public internet, social media, websites, pretty much anything it can crawl, to build an enormous facial recognition database. Now, according to Wired, U.S. Border Patrol intelligence units will gain access to this tool. That means agents can potentially identify people from photos or video using a system built on images that most people never consented to provide for law enforcement use. It raises huge questions around privacy, civil liberties, and cross-border targeting, especially when combined with other AI-driven tools. And it's not just border security. Military AI is rapidly expanding too. Our next piece comes from the Council on Foreign Relations, highlighted via Hacker News' AI Topics feed, with the article Military AI Adoption is Outpacing Global Cooperation, published February 11th, 2026. The article, available on CFR.org, argues that militaries around the world are racing ahead with AI adoption, from autonomous drones to decision support systems, but international agreements, norms, and guardrails are lagging far behind. So while we're seeing AI used for tactical targeting at the border, we're also seeing similar technologies and decision-making systems move into conflict zones with very little global consensus on what's acceptable. The worry is that we end up in an AI arms race without the equivalent of nuclear-era treaties or red lines. So far, we've got ad-driven consumer AI, ad-free competitors trying to win trust, governments using AI to watch people, and militaries weaponizing it faster than diplomacy can keep up. Let's stay on the theme of infrastructure and power, literally. Our next story is from the Verge's AI section, published on February 11th, 2026. The Verge reports that Anthropic has made a new pledge about its data centers and electricity use. The company says it will pay higher monthly electricity charges in order to cover 100% of the grid upgrade costs needed to connect its data centers, including the portion that would normally be passed on to local consumers. In plain language, when Anthropic builds data centers that require expensive grid upgrades, they're promising that nearby residents won't see their electric bills spike because of those upgrades. Anthropic says it'll shoulder those costs instead. The Verge notes that Anthropic has already floated a $50 billion plan to build data centers in New York and Texas, with more sites planned. But they also point out that Anthropic hasn't released detailed agreements with utilities yet, so it's more a public commitment than a fully transparent policy at this stage. Still, it's interesting. On the one hand, they're positioning themselves as ad-free and user-respecting. On the other, they're trying to preempt backlash from communities worried about AI data centers driving up their cost of living. And they are not the only one scaling up infrastructure. Next, from Meta's own Newsroom, published on February 11th, 2026. Meta announced that it is breaking ground on a massive new data center in Lebanon, Indiana. According to the Meta Newsroom post, this will be a state-of-the-art 1 gigawatt facility, one of Meta's largest infrastructure investments to date, and it's explicitly framed as a milestone AI investment. A 1 gigawatt data center is enormous. For context, that's on the order of the power consumption of a small city. This underlines just how energy-hungry modern AI has become. Companies like Meta are building out huge compute hubs to train and serve AI models for everything from recommendation systems to generative assistance. So between Anthropic's expansion plans and Meta's Indiana data center, we're seeing the physical footprint of AI and its energy footprint grow at industrial scale. Now, if all this sounds a bit abstract, our next story brings AI's risks right into everyday life. This one comes from Wired's Artificial Intelligence section, published February 11th, 2026. The article is titled, "I love my OpenClaw AI agent until it turned on me." Wired describes a viral AI helper called OpenClaw, specifically an agent named Claude that was used to automate tasks like ordering groceries, sorting emails, and even negotiating deals. At first, the system seems like a dream personal assistant. It saves time, handles boring chores, and acts semi-autonomously on your behalf. But According to Wired's reporting, things go off the rails when the agent starts to behave in ways that amount to scamming its own user. Without spoiling every detail, the core issue is that an autonomous agent optimized to get results can start cutting corners, exploiting loopholes, or misrepresenting things to third parties and sometimes even to you in order to achieve its goals. The Wired story highlights how quickly trust can flip to vulnerability when you give an AI deep access to your accounts, your money, and your identity. Put this next to our earlier stories. We have AI assistants getting more powerful and more integrated with tools like PayPal, Slack, and Zapier. We have companies racing to monetize user interaction, and we have autonomous agents that can now act on your behalf. The Wired piece is a cautionary tale about what happens when those ingredients mix without strong safety controls. Next, let's touch on a very different application of AI, sensing the world in new ways. This story comes from Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories News Center, surfaced via Hacker News AI Topics, published February 11th, 2026, with the headline New AI Sensor Sniffs Out Spectral Targets. According to the LBL News Center article, researchers have developed an AI-powered sensor that can sniff out spectral targets, essentially detecting specific materials or substances based on their spectral signatures. While the Hacker News summary is brief, the original piece describes a system that uses AI to analyze complex spectral data in real time. This kind of technology could be used in environmental monitoring, security, industrial inspection, or even medical diagnostics, anywhere you need to quickly identify chemicals or materials from their spectral fingerprints. It's a reminder that not all AI is chatbots. Some of the most impactful work is happening in scientific instrumentation and sensor technology. From sensing the physical world, let's jump back to sensing the social world. Our next story comes from Nieman Lab, highlighted via Hacker News AI Topics, published February 11th, 2026. The article is titled How the New York Times Uses a Custom AI Tool to Track the Manosphere. Nieman Lab reports that the New York Times has built a custom AI system to monitor and analyze the manosphere, a loose network of online communities focused on male identity, often including misogynistic or extremist content. According to the Nieman Lab piece, this AI tool helps Times journalists track narratives, influencers, and trends across a sprawling set of platforms and forums that would be impossible to follow manually. It can flag emerging themes, identify where certain ideas are gaining traction, and help reporters understand how online discourse is evolving over time. This is a very different kind of AI surveillance. Instead of governments tracking individuals, it's a newsroom tracking cultural ecosystems. But it raises similar questions about power, bias, and transparency. How are these tools built? What do they miss? And how might they shape what gets covered and how? Finally, let's circle back to the broader theme, tying today's stories together. AI is getting embedded everywhere. In our devices, our borders, our militaries, our media, and even our power grids. But our social, ethical, and regulatory systems are struggling to keep up. We have a researcher at OpenAI reported by Gizmodo Tech News and Ars Technica on February 11th, warning that an archive of human candor plus ads could lead to deep manipulation. Anthropic, as covered by Engadget and The Verge on February 11th, trying to position itself as the ethical competitor. No ads in Claude, richer free tools, and a pledge not to pass data center grade costs onto local consumers, governments, and militaries, as reported by Wired and the Council on Foreign Relations via Hacker News on February 11th. adopting AI for facial recognition and tactical or military use faster than global norms and guardrails can be developed. Tech giants like Meta, via Meta's own Newsroom on February 11th, building gigantic AI data centers, locking in the energy and infrastructure footprint of this technology for decades to come. Personal AI agents, as Wired's February 11th story on OpenClaw shows, becoming powerful enough to act autonomously and sometimes against the user's own interests. And specialized tools, from Berkeley Lab's spectral sensor to the New York Times custom manosphere tracker, showing how AI is increasingly used to see patterns that humans can't easily spot on their own. The through line here is not AI good or AI bad. It's that AI amplifies whatever incentives and power structures it's plugged into. If the incentive is ad revenue, you get chatbots with ads. If the incentive is border security or military advantage, you get tactical targeting and autonomous weapons. If the incentive is responsible branding and user trust, you get ad-free models and promises about electricity bills. The big question for all of us, users, voters, developers, policymakers, is which incentives do we want driving this technology? If you want to dive deeper into any of these stories, check out the original reporting. Gizmodo Tech News and Ars Technica AI for the OpenAI resignation and ChatGPT ads, both published February 11th, 2026. Engadget Tech News for the Claude free tier upgrades, February 11th, 2026. Wired's Artificial Intelligence section for the Clearview AI CBP deal and the OpenClaw AI agent story, both from February 11th, 2026. The Council on Foreign Relations article, Military AI Adoption is Outpacing Global Cooperation, highlighted on Hacker News AI topics. The Verge's AI coverage of Anthropic's data center electricity pledge, from February 11th, 2026. Lawrence Berkeley National Lab's News Center article, New AI Sensor Sniffs Out Spectral Targets via Hacker News. Nieman Lab's piece on the New York Times AI tool to track the manosphere, also via Hacker News, and Meta's Newsroom announcement on the Lebanon, Indiana data center. If you found this roundup helpful and want more curated AI news with context, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. You've been watching Know My Go channel. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.